for coming out. Again, this blows the Lowe's vote total away. So thank you all for coming out. And let's get going on this. Good evening. This is the special town meeting for September 9th, 2025, being 7:36 and more than a quorum being present. We'll call the meeting to order. Return of the warrant shows has been properly served. And okay, they're still counting back there, so we'll have a count sometime soon. As tradition, I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag, which is I pledge allegiance to the flag. Thank you. That was beautiful. 612 people. Wow. Good stuff. All right. At this time, I'd like to introduce people to you at the head tables. We have the Select Board. We have Randy Iser, Chair, Molly Keegan, David Phil, Jane Nevin-Smith, and Amy Parsons. Town Administrator, Michael Mason. Town Council, Lisa Mead. And Town Clerk, Jessica Spanknable. Finance Committee, Amy Fiden, Chair, Paul Benjamin, Vice Chair, Shardul Pamar, Andy Klepacki, Peter Matusko, and I am your moderator, Kirk Watley. I'd like to first of all thank Hadley Media for getting this all set up and for fixing the microphone. Good job, Alex. We're going to be going over a lot of things tonight, and I want to implore you, if you don't understand what the discussion is about, please ask a question. If you have a question about the way something is worded, please ask a question. With that in mind, the meeting, as usual, will be conducted according to town meeting time rules. Not Robert's rules, but town meeting time. Alex, I gave you kudos. All right. If you wish to speak to the article, please come to one of the microphones and wait to be recognized by the moderator. Please keep all comments relative to the article or motion at hand. Please respect others. Don't refer to any previous speaker by name. Use previous speaker. And all questions are to be directed to me. You may speak as many times as you want or you feel necessary, but please give others a chance to speak before returning to the microphone. If necessary, I'll ask you to wait until others have had a chance to speak. Going to limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Please silence, as I learned, all electronic devices at this time, if you would, please. All right, we're starting to get into some of the meat and potatoes. For the first 500 voters, you were given 3 color-coded yes/no ballots. There's no need to check in if your number is 500 or less. Ballots cannot be left with others. If a voter leaves the town meeting before the vote, they must return the color-coded ballots at check-in. Once voting starts, if you leave, you cannot come back in until the vote is finished. Question 1, the first 500 voters, is pink. Use the pink paper for yes or no. Question 2 is blue. And we have, just in case we need it, we have a yellow one. There's no question 3, but just in case something comes up, we wanted to be prepared for it. The ballots are not perforated. Simply fold them back and forth, tear in 2. There are 2 places to cast your ballots, and will be called up in sections to do it. Cast the way you want to vote in the box. Make sure you got the right color, and I'm going to announce it. If you put the wrong color in, you put the wrong ballot in, tough cookies. I ain't getting near that thing to change it. All right? There's also a trash can right on the other side of each end. Take the vote that you do not want to use for the question 1 or question 2 and throw that in the trash. 1 ballot per person per vote. We will not allow you to collect votes for others and put them in the ballot box, even if they're still at the meeting. If any voter needs assistance, please let me know. We'll be more than happy to accommodate you. The ballots will be tallied at the end of the tables in full view of the voters. Voters are not allowed to interfere with the counting of the ballots, and the results will be announced by me. Anyone with a ballot number 501 or higher, and there's a lot of you out there, you received a number and a single sheet of paper that's beige, okay, whitish, with a yes, no on it. For the first round of balloting on question 1, use that yes or no. When the ballots are being counted, go back to the registrars. Again, if your ballot number is 501 or higher, go back to the registrars with your number. You lose your number. Sorry, Charlie, that's it. Go back with your number and you will get a paper ballot for question number 2. You have to check in with the registrars where you checked in when you came in. Any questions on that? Okay, cool, pretty straightforward. It is hot in here, and what I would ask, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation. What I would ask, if your comments are going to be repetitious of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 speakers ahead of you, as much as you want to speak, please reconsider just for the sake of moving on. It is a hot night here. But if you definitely want to speak, then by all means, please line up the microphones and wait to be recognized. I want to recognize, I almost forgot. We have our state representative in the background, Omar Gomez. Can you raise your hand? Way back there. Thank you for coming out. All right, so everybody's got everything they need. So I am going to read the article in motion form, ask for a second, and then we will move to conversation. Motion, Article 1, that the town vote to raise and appropriate $2,250,624 for the purpose of funding general operating purposes for the town departments to include, but not limited to, public safety, schools, DPW, and other municipal services for the fiscal year 2026 to be placed in a reserve and later transfer account to be further transferred by town meeting prior to the expenditure, and further said appropriation is subject to the approval of the Proposition 2.5 override or take any action relative thereto. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. I want to take a moment and just do a little bit of an explanation before the speakers come up. What we are doing tonight is we are we're doing a general appropriation of the funds to these departments. This does not mean it locks it in or anything like that. We're simply voting, okay, the town's asking for $2.25 million. We're going to be spending it in these departments. You can vote yes or no on that. No matter what happens, if motion 1 or Article 1 or Article 2 pass, fail, doesn't matter. We go to the ballot and we vote like we usually do at an election. So we have to turn out at the election to vote. Again, even if both motions fail, we have to go vote like we do at a town election. So just be aware of this. What we're doing tonight is providing a general guideline of where these monies are going to be spent. So, is that relatively clear? Okay, so regardless of what happens tonight, we're going to go to the ballot like we do for elections and vote for that. This is a general appropriation idea. So, Article 1 was approved by the Finance Committee, by the Select Board 5-0, and was approved by the Finance Committee 3-2.
budget was we were giving required increases to union personnel who had collective bargaining agreements, but oftentimes it was at the expense of everybody who was not part of a bargaining unit. So that was something that the select board thought was appropriate and a fair thing to do. The town completed construction of a new senior center, library, and the North Hadley substation shortly thereafter. In 2021, we started benefiting from the ARPA funds, the federal funding that was put in place to help all states and municipalities during the pandemic. We were able to use this money to plug revenue shortfalls for all of the revenue we weren't getting from local receipts, meals tax, hotels, they were shut down, right? So we did use the ARPA funds very appropriately and as intended. At the same time, in recognition of the feedback that we were getting from residents and business owners who were concerned about how tight things were, the town actually voted to reduce the tax rate to $12 even. In order to accomplish that, we needed to leave about $800,000 over a 2-year period of tax revenue on the table. So that's revenue that never came in. We could have raised it, but chose not to, again, trying to meet the needs of the citizenry. Once the ARPA funds were fully utilized, we found ourselves in a situation where we needed to rely a little bit more heavily on free cash year over year than we had been. 2022 now we're up to. At this point, going back to the ambulance coverage, there were concerns that were raised about the financial stability of Action Ambulance. Now, recall, they're our primary ambulance provider. Action at that time was suffering, like many businesses, with personnel challenges. They were having difficult time staffing. And again, appropriately, our fire chief raised a concern and said, we need to take a look at this. So at that point, we decided that maybe we needed to more seriously look about bringing ambulance coverage fully in-house. In order to do that, and not to raise taxes or look for an override at that point, we looked at the reserves and decided that it was possible that we could incrementally increase the staffing of the ambulance coverage, fire personnel to provide ambulance coverage over a multi-year period, with the expectation that once it was fully in-house, all of that revenue would be coming to the town and it would cover that cost. So we set ourselves on a multi-year strategy to adopt the use of some free cash and even stabilization money to achieve that goal. After a decade of nearly no inflation, we were also experiencing the fact that the real inflation was far outstripping the annual Proposition 2.5 tax cap. During this time frame, 2 more unions formed. Fire department formed a union, and the municipal employees, who had never had a union, also formed. So now almost all of our employees, with the exception of some department heads and a few, are under collective bargaining agreements. The salary and wage study was finally completed in 2024, working with the Collins Center after close to 4 years of lingering out there. At that point, the select board decided to target the 50th percentile for wages and bring people we believe to be underpaid up to at least that level. That put most of these employees on a grid, resulting in approximately a $250,000 increase one time of additional salary expenses. But at least now we felt that they were being paid an appropriate wage for the work being done. 2025. The Group Insurance Trust, well, you'll hear more about that later, raised medical coverage premiums by 18% as we were preparing the FY26 budget. Just for context, this single line item increased from $1.1 million in 2019 to $2.26 million. Now we were having to budget for FY26. Something comparable was happening on the retirement line item as well. At the same time, our fire chief looked at the budget for the in-house ambulance, and we started digging in to see where those numbers were. And what we found was that with a change happening across the country with Medicaid, Medicare cuts, there was a lot of compression on the revenue side. And we were hearing the same thing from Action Ambulance. That was coupled with an increase in the cost of personnel. And what we realized was at that point, it was better to put the brakes on this plan, that it wasn't likely going to work now. It might work in the future, but we didn't want to throw good money after bad. And the select board said, okay, let's just stop this now. And again, it's something that we can look at down the road. At that time, we also had a much greater comfort level that Action had worked its way out of that period of instability. And we felt that we were providing the best ambulance coverage for you through Action Ambulance. So at the annual town meeting, just going back to May, anyone who attended was informed that the budget was balanced. However, significant cuts had been made, and certain fire personnel, those associated with the ambulance, were only funded through October 1st, and that we were evaluating an override. After that FY26 budget was voted, we found out more wonderful news from the Group Insurance Trust, and a mid-year increase of an additional 20% medical cost would be mandated on top of the 18% we had already budgeted. This is primarily due to unfavorable claims experience because of the widespread use of the new GLP-1, the diet drugs, the weight loss drugs that so many people are taking advantage of, and also just larger than normal number of expensive cancer cases. At that point, we knew that we were going to have to be here. Again, it's not a place that any of us want to be. We don't enjoy this, but there is a necessity for the override ask, and the wheels were set in motion, and here we are tonight.
Yep, you definitely have more. All right. So, all right, Linda.
Hi. Is that working? I'm Linda Sanderson. I'm the finance director for the town. I have the fun question of, we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. It's actually, that seems to be two questions in one, so I'm going to answer that part first. I'm not sure maybe what makes that much of a difference, but I will. It is true that our expenses have now overtaken our revenues. We're a town meeting form of government, and so we bring this question to you. That's where we're here tonight, so that you can decide how we handle this issue. I'm going to tell you the two questions I hear most often, excluding the fire ambulance, which was just well covered. The first question I hear most often is referring back to the health insurance costs, which is a large part of our ask tonight. Why didn't we see that coming? I'm going to explain. In the 8 years from FY19 to 25, our health insurance costs rose a total of $233,460. That's an average of just under $40,000 a year for 6 years in a row. To have foreseen that then in a single year, we'd have an increase of 20 times that amount to $816,000 increase 1 year is beyond our real world abilities. The best we can do now is to help manage that increase, and that's one of the main reasons we're here tonight. The second issue that I hear brought up about our spending is relating to DPW equipment. And I'm going to focus in on the $500,000 vac truck, which is probably the most expensive piece of equipment that we have purchased over the years. I want to assure you that that is not $500,000 that comes directly out of the budget in 1 year. It's not as if we would have less of a problem if we hadn't bought that truck. And it didn't come out of any of our reserves. Ask any of our bankers and financial people tonight. We borrow that money, and we borrow it at an amazing interest rate. The bond we just closed on last week was at 3.45%. I'd like that for my mortgage. We pay that back on an annual basis out of the debt and interest portion of the budget. And that part of the budget was set up exactly for that purpose, for payment of loans. And it stays stable from year to year. It only rises when we have debt exclusion, which is a vote for usually a building or something very large where the purchase raises the taxes in order to cover that additional amount. But I can assure you that none of the equipment that we are now purchasing were through debt exclusion. They did not raise your taxes. The vac truck, the $500,000 borrowing costs us an average of $25,000 a year plus interest. Contrast that to the annual rental expenses I went through with the DPW director over the last few days. The rental for the purposes that we need would far exceed the $25,000 a year. The hourly rate is $300, higher if we have an emergency, and that's when we want it most. And we also have a wait if there was an emergency, and we have emergencies. The number of hours this truck is used at that hourly rate and the fact that we would need it immediately made the calculations point directly to a purchase being more economical for the town. So that was what was recommended by the department head. That's not the end of it. The request goes to the Capital Planning Committee. That's chaired by Paul Kretsky. Then it goes to the Finance Committee. That's chaired by Amy Feidman. And then it goes to the Select Board. And that was chaired at the time by Molly Keegan. All the three of these are well-respected financial officials and financial professionals in our town. That's a lot of good advice. Given their level of leadership, it was brought to town meeting and town meeting passed it. I don't think we can do much better than that. So it's hard to hear now that that was somehow a waste of money and what are we doing? And this was a good process, and this is how we buy our equipment. It goes through that process every time. It's well vetted by the time it gets to you. So yes, that I think answers part one. Part two, we have too many people and they make too much money. Well, there's work that the town needs to do, and we need the people to do it. Some of the increases in employees in the last stretch of time has been due to the additional work that has to be taken on in town hall that used to be done by several elected and appointed boards. These boards, it's not like it was, things have changed. These boards no longer have the time and sometimes not even the knowledge to take on the full responsibility of the department, the work of the department the way they used to. Now let me give you some examples. When I was first on Finance Committee, Finance Committee prepared the budget from start to finish. It set up its own meetings and agendas, did its own minutes. The budget's now prepared at Town Hall. I actually myself prepared the first draft and work with the town administrator, and it goes to Finance Committee and Select Board. It's done in Town Hall now. And other paid staff posts the meetings and even prepares the minutes. Let me point out, I have two more examples. One's Board of Health. Board of Health members had to become qualified and perform all the necessary inspections for the town. That's well beyond the policy-making responsibilities that the board is now limited to. Now the inspections, also posting meetings and preparation of minutes, that needs to be done by qualified paid staff in Town Hall. That's a new position. Let me point out too, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, same thing. A dedicated employee knowledgeable in these land use areas now takes on the responsibilities that once belonged exclusively to the officials who had to come in with their own background in these areas to do the town's work. Things have changed. It's not just that we have more work to do, we actually have a different kind of work, and we cannot rely on these, what used to be the volunteer boards handling the work for us. It's just not possible anymore. These are my starting examples. Adding new positions is not taken lightly by the town. There's an intense process involving budgeting and staffing and department head presentations to the Select Board, and it goes through Finance Committee and ultimately town meeting as part of budget approval. And the last part of this question, they make too much money. As you heard previously, the rates have been set pretty much across the board in the middle range for each position. I can't think of a single position where our unqualified person couldn't earn more money going elsewhere. That's why employee turnover really has been a significant problem for us, and one of the issues that has been trying to be solved by the new compensation study, which set the new pay rates for individuals at the 50% mark. So yes, that contributes to the work turnovers, as is the threat of layoffs due to possible budget cuts. It's been a very difficult stretch of time in the town, but this is the process that we need to go through. We are not a company where they could just sit down at a board meeting and make a decision. Oh, we've got to make some cuts and here's the layoffs. No, we have to go through the process. So this has been hanging over the employees of our town for months now, since our early summer, as to what's going to happen with the budget. So thank you.
Mike.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Mason. I'm the chief of police, and that's my real job. And right now I'm trying to be the interim town administrator. My question that I'm going to be answering has to do with our health insurance coverage. The health insurance hit that we took so far, as Molly mentioned, we took one hit about 18% before we even started writing the FY26 budget. We then were notified of another 20% addition to that mid-year increase, which is very unusual. And I'm not sure if she mentioned it or not, but they have informed us to expect another possible double-digit increase for next July in our next budget cycle. So we thought it was really important to try to highlight this and try to explain it. I'm not an expert in the healthcare situation, so I did sit down with our HR director and try to get the best answer possible for folks so you could hopefully understand what's going on with this. And these questions up here were questions that were specifically asked to some select board members, some things on social media. People really are interested to this, and I can completely understand. So this question is, why didn't Hadley shop around for medical coverage? One of the other questions I heard was, are we shopping around currently for medical coverage now that we know what's going on? And then why didn't Hadley know the insurance trust was in trouble in time to get out? For those of you who don't know, Hadley is a member of something called the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. We are one of 73 different members, and each one of the members shares the costs of health insurance among that entire group. So we are currently shopping medical coverage. We are currently looking at MIA, which is the Massachusetts I can never say the word, interlocal insurance company, as well as GIC. Those insurance carriers have seen the same insurance hikes. The difference is that there's more members. So there's a possibility to spread the cost out a little bit further and bring the insurance costs down for us. But everyone is facing the same problems that we're facing when it comes to these issues. One of the other things that was touched on recently, or touched on by, I believe, Molly, is that the reason that the trust gave all of us that these hikes were coming is because of the unprecedented high dollar claims that they were getting in a very short period of time, most of them for cancer treatments and things like that, as well as the GLP-1 drugs. One of the things that insurance trusts will do when you do shop your coverage around, which our HR director has been doing, is they rate you the same way that a insurance company would rate you if you're trying to get different insurance for your car. Right? They'll check your driver's history, they'll check your crash history and things like that. And one of the things that they did when we were shopping these coverages around is we were finding that in looking elsewhere, our rates were very comparable to some of the other rates out there, and the coverage was better. I spoke recently with one of our longtime employees who was a retiree, who was also hit with this increase and none too happy about it, as I can completely understand. But we did get into the part of the discussion about, you can have the option of changing plans, or if you break your leg in Missouri, you don't have to worry about, getting yourself fixed up. So that's one of the reasons that past select boards decided to go with these plans. As far as why Hadley didn't know, no one knew the trust was in trouble. HR directors share insurance information quite often. They do talk about shopping different plans around. The unprecedented amount of high dollar claims came in and apparently, according to the trust, depleted $3 million worth of reserves within 1 to 3 months. They advised us that if claims continued at that unprecedented amount, the trust would have gone bankrupt and shut its doors as of September 1st, 2025. So it would be out of business. This would have left all 70 plus members of the trust scrambling to either find another insurance or worse, having to cover all of your claims out of pocket for your town. No one can really tell what your claims would be, obviously, and I think that's part of the frightening aspect of it. If you were trying to budget for something like that, no one knows when someone's going to fall down a flight of stairs and get injured, and so these claims would have to have been paid out of pocket, and budgeting with a question mark is never a good practice and certainly doesn't work here in Hadley. Additionally, the members of the trust asked the trust to extend their change from July 1st, 2025 to October 1st, 2025 to give us time to make adjustments. So that massive increase was actually going to come sooner rather than later. The group, I believe each one of the members gets a vote in how these things work, and they did request of the trust to push that off. There was simply no predicting the high dollar claim that came through over that 2 to 3 month period. So that's kind of a 20,000 foot view of the insurance situation. And again, we are preparing for another hit potentially next July. We just don't know what it's going to be yet.
Jane, you've got the next question. Would you like to, please stay seated when you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Alex.
Alex, is Jane? Oh, there you go.
Hello. There we go. Thank you. So what happens to people who truly cannot afford this? Are there credit or payment plans available? I'm at the senior center. I hear this a lot. We understand it is a real concern for some residents. The town collector can work with individuals on budgeting. There are also programs designed to provide tax relief, such as the Chapter 17D exemptions, the state senior tax, and the veterans tax work-off programs. We encourage anyone who is struggling to reach out so that we can connect them with the resources that may help you with this. Don't just stay it alone. Ask for help. My next question, different question, is why don't we drop the CPA tax to help reduce the sticker shock? Every dollar raised locally through the CPA is matched at some level by the state CPA trust fund. If Hadley opts out of it, not only does it give up the local surtax revenue, but it also walks away from free money from the state. Since the adoption of the CPA, the town has contributed $5 million, and the state has contributed $3.2 million, basically free money to us. With this money, the CPA has contributed to fund projects like the Hopkins Fields, the preservation of 14,019 acres, Zaturka Park restoration, the first church steeple in Hadley, which is going to start, you'll see that happening in the next couple of weeks, the elementary school pavilion and playground, and the cemetery restoration, as well as many other projects.
My question is, how do we know you learned your lesson and you won't just spend every nickel of this and be back looking for more in a couple of years? So this isn't about learning a lesson. It's about facing the financial realities before us. No one takes this process lightly, but it is necessary to reset the town's finances. Once we make that correction, the combination of new growth, our annual 2.5% levy increase, and a more disciplined budget structure will allow us to remain stable without needing to return for another override. Any of you that came to the forums heard me say, this is not a fun process. Nobody up in front of you is enjoying this one bit. We understand what it means to everybody. It means the same thing to us. We're all taxpayers. We're all going to have to pay up if this passes. So please remember that.
Molly, my notes say Keegan Sanderson. Last I looked, you were Keegan.
Then the final question, what happens if the override doesn't pass? Okay. So there are going to be changes necessary, obviously, but there is a process for making them. In general, it's going to fall back to the select board and the finance committee. There's certain expenses that we just have to meet, right? So we know that the fire personnel aren't fully funded. So those positions just aren't funded. So we're going to have to take a look at that and reduce the fire department's staffing. And then we're going to have to go through a pretty detailed process of taking a look at all of the positions out there. Maybe through natural attrition, people will leave, or there are going to be retirements that will be helpful. But it's not likely going to go the whole way because we still have to pay those medical expenses, which is a pretty big nut to crack. And that's just for this FY26, if you want to talk about.
Right. So yeah, actually,
You tap it. Alex. Okay. No, we're good. You're good. You're live.
is that better?
Yep.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yes. I want to say there, if you turn to your second page after the warrant, you'll see where this money would be going. I think there might be a slide on it 2 or 3 down too. This shows what would the budget. We would immediately revert to we already have the budget in place for FY26. That's the first column in white. That's what you voted in the spring. The budget we would be asking for are the first column in blue, and the changes between the 2 budgets are shown in the 3rd column. If you've been watching our override categories from the material online or what was presented at the forums, that would be the second block down below. The EMS is the 579,435. That would not be funded. As was just explained, we just would have to reduce that or eliminate a good chunk of that program. Health insurance, we can't not pay health insurance. You can not fund it, but we still have to pay it, which means the dollars that would go to the health insurance that we have to pay for the health insurance now have to come out of cuts elsewhere in the budget. And then the other part of it is really, as you see, as it's spread across, it impacts the school, other insurances, and all town departments. The process is we would be preparing a new budget for the fall town meeting in October. It goes through the normal process that we would prepare it. It would go to finance committee and select board. So we would either be preparing a budget for you that reflects these increases or one that would show the cuts because of it. As we go into FY27, we know this year that we used over $800,000 in free cash to balance the budget. Again, almost half of that was for the health insurance increase that we were aware of in the spring. We're not going to have that going into the next year because they already know our free cash is not even going to be 800,000. So not only are we going to have to continue the cuts into 27 that we're making now, but we're probably looking at another $400,000 or $500,000 in cuts. It's hard to say a year in advance. A lot of things happen, but this is how it looks to us now, which is why, to keep this from happening, one of the requests in the override budget is asking for that 800,000 in free cash that we used for the budget to be funded with a commitment going forward, starting with the 27 budget. We won't be using free cash for the budgeting. We'll have our revenues, and the budget will be within. The budget will have to be within those revenues. Free cash will be used for other purposes, maybe to ease the expense of capital and to pay for other needs of the town, so that we perhaps can do less borrowing. Okay.
David.
All right. One of the questions we get is, if we're short on funds, why do we spend so much on equipment, capital spending? Linda already talked a lot about this, so I'm just going to go through the process real quick. When a department head comes to us and says, I need a truck or I need some piece of capital equipment, the process is it goes through the capital committee. Typically, the capital committee makes some cuts to those requests. Then those capital items go to the finance committee, the select board, and ultimately to town meeting. And unfortunately, a typical town meeting is somewhere between 100 and 200 people that make those decisions for 5,000 people in this town. So we often get the question of, why did you guys spend this? All we can do is we can make cuts to the requests, but at the end of the day, the voters vote on what capital items are purchased in this town. And typically it's about 100 people that make those decisions on behalf of all of us. So there is some vetting to the requests for capital, but that's the process of how capital is approved in town.
Hello again. This next question, really good question. I like this one. This is a permanent tax hike. And that's what it is, folks. This is not a debt exclusion. This is not like, if we're building a building, your taxes would be raised until the building is paid off. It's essentially like a loan, and then your taxes would go back down. The difference between that and this is that this is a permanent request. So the question is, this is a permanent tax hike. We want assurances on exactly how the money will be spent, as you should. So, similar to what David just said, I think it's really kind of important to understand the budget process. And I apologize if this is boring, but I want folks to understand that I've sat on both sides of this process. I've sat on the side of a department head where I've come in to make these requests to the folks that are up here. And then I've sat on the other side of it where I unfortunately have to look at the requests and try to make it fit within this box and work with Linda, work with our revenues. So the budget process starts each fall. And the first thing that we look at is projected revenues. And the best thing we can do is look at actual projected revenues. We do not know what the revenues will be at that point. So we can only do the best we can to project what we're looking at. We start these budget processes in sometime in October, November, December. At that point, we're asking department heads to start submitting us draft budgets. So essentially, they're writing a budget for a budget cycle that does not begin until July 1, 6 months after that point. We are projecting revenues for that same budget cycle, and we need to know kind of what they are throughout the entire cycle. The first step of the process is each one of the department heads will come in and they'll submit their request to the finance director and to the town administrator. We will go through and make adjustments. We will make cuts. We will talk with the department head about their current level of spending. We will go through their budget line by line. Oftentimes, if we see certain lines that are not being spent, not being expended, we will ask them why. What is going on with this particular line item that you've only spent 12% of it this far into the budget cycle? It's on them to then explain to us, well, we don't get a bill for this particular IT service until this time of the year, whatever the explanation is. Oftentimes, that line is reduced, and it's reduced significantly based upon what they're spending in. And the umbrella of this is the revenues that we are predicting for the town for the entire year. Once that part of the process is done and we've gone through and worked through each department head and we've sufficiently reduced their budget to get as close to a balanced budget as we can through round one, it then goes to round two. It goes through that same budget process 2 more times. So from the other side of the table, I used to have to come in and sit in front of the finance committee and present the exact same budget request to these individuals. Obviously, they change over time. And then we would have multiple meetings and more reductions would likely be made, and they would dig deeper into why I'm asking for certain things within my budget. Their responsibility is to the taxpayer. Their job is to vet what I'm asking for and determine the need, as well as whether or not it can be afforded. Can it be pushed off? Can it be split? Can we consolidate? Can we figure out a better way to spend the town's money? After that process, if you make it through with whatever your budget is at that point, then you move on to the select board. Now, in previous years, quite some time ago, probably when I was a new chief, probably 10, 11 years ago, we used to have to give 3 full budget presentations. The first step sort of took the place of that final budget presentation in front of the select board, because we now have a finance director who's a finance professional, and with the town administrator and the finance director working together, the select board is sufficiently confident that with the cuts that a finance committee would make on top of those cuts, that what is presented to them is within reason. And then finally, once every single department head goes through that 3-step process, we end up here. So if you take what I've just said to you and you relate it to what's going on right here and right now, ultimately what I can tell you is this. In FY26, before we started this budget, every single department head went through that process. Every single department head received reductions to their budget. Close to $2 million worth of requests were cut across the board from every department head to be able to put in front of you, the budget sheet, to be able to put in front of you the FY26 budget and be able to call it balanced. We knew at that point that there were several department heads who were cut so deeply with what we reduced that they may not make it through the entirety of FY26. We had a priority of ensuring that no departments would lose personnel, but we reduced significantly their expense lines. So these are lines that cover all your IT costs, email, office supplies, really anything that you can think of for any department that you can think of that they would use on a day-to-day basis to run their department. Then what we did is we brought everyone back in again, and we put every department head through that same budget cycle. Molly mentioned in the beginning that when we began to discuss the potential for an override, that was essentially step 1 of that process. What we needed was a number. We needed to know what we were short and whether or not we could make it work. This is Hadley. We try to piece things together in this town. I've worked here for 25 years. I know how it works. So we put everyone through the same process again. And what we came up with was, again, that's not up there again, but the grayed out FY26 lines of what do you need to survive, essentially? What do you need to continue the operations of your department? And then we cut that number again. We reduced it again. We went through every single department head and we essentially sat down and said, bare bones reductions on those requests. And those requests, again, we said, what do you need to make it through? So we went through and we shaved it down again. So I say all that, and I know that we're in a situation right now where there's a trust issue. That's understandable. I say that so that everyone understands that these 10 folks up here with the finance director and the interim town administrator have done the best they can in putting in front of you what they think is needed. Now, not everyone agrees, and you will hear explanations tonight as to why folks disagree. But I just want to make sure that folks understand this is what the process is, and that's what the process was to get us to where we are right now. So I hope that helps.
Linda, you're batting cleanup.
Okay. Ah. Now it's on. Okay. The question is, the town still has reserves. Why aren't we using them? Boy, I wish we could. That's a great idea. That's how we got here. We had been using our free cash for many, many years, over as long as I can remember. The problem is not using some of it, it's the quantity and the fact that it has grown as much as it has over the last few years. So at town meeting in the spring, we spent every dollar of our free cash, $846,785. That's one of the parts of the override that we are asking you to replenish that. Let us get back to even. I won't do it again. We know that going into 27, we're not going to have 846,000. We're not going to have 500,000. So that means more cuts are going to come in 27 based on this. So I'm not sure what other reserves people are referring to. Free cash is the main one used for the budget. We have stabilization funds, which we try and keep it at 2 million. It's slightly below that now, but it should be rising and get there again. But we can't use a fund like stabilization to regularly fund the town budget. Reserves are, one and done. You spend it, it's gone. It's not like revenues where next year we'll get more revenues. It's not like that. We have a pile of money and you use it for an operating expense, it's gone. If the thought is about water reserves or sewer reserves, those are exclusively for the water reserve. This override is for our general fund, and we can only use general fund sources for it.
Now, some of you would probably like to hear from members of the Finance Committee. They've asked to speak as well, and I'm going to start. All right, if you guys have questions, come on up to the mics. Hang on for 1 sec. Paul, what's going on? Hang on for a second, Dan. Paul, what's going on? Yeah. Speak. Okay. All right. Paul, can you go up to the microphone? I apologize.
I was going to say, if the Finance Committee is not going to be speaking, then are you going to start taking comments from the audience?
That was the mood of the audience, seemed to be to skip the Finance Committee and to go to questions. Was that an accurate read? Yeah, yes and no. Can you guys keep it short? Okay, Finance is going to keep it short. Amy, grab a microphone.
Okay.
Is it on?
Hello? No. This one's not.
Look for the green button, green light. Alex, is that one on? Come on up here, Mark.
I think it's on. No. Okay.
Go ahead, Amy.
Amy, he's giving you.
Should be working.
All right, so I'll talk, we do have a split vote on the finance committee. I will keep this short as far as what I have to say. In the beginning, people asked me where I was with this vote. I did vote yes in the beginning. I did feel like I really felt like the fire department was important to have 24/7. I did give this a lot more thought since. At this time today, I will be voting no for this. So I am on the other page. I do feel that we could be doing things differently. I think we need to, if we need to change our behavior. Our behavior needs to be changed. The reason for this is I understand with what the capital is. That is true. We do scrutinize capital quite a bit. We do scrutinize the budget when it comes to line items, when it comes to maybe sludge or something like that. But we don't scrutinize the people, because what we're given in the finance committee is the budget book. That's what we're given. It's already spent. The money's already allocated. So we just have to find where the money's going to come from. So where I'm saying is, I don't think it's a fair statement to say for the townspeople, for us to say, it's your fault, you voted for it, and you voted for this budget. No, I don't think that's fair, because you have 5 people from the select board that recommend it. You have 5 people from the finance that recommend it. Of course, you're going to say yes at town meeting. Even the finance, when we recommend the budget, it's already spent a lot of the money. We have to find where we're going to get the money from. And I think changing this behavior and having the money allocated before we spend it is important. Most of this stuff is done through executive session, and we are, the finance director nor finance committee is part of that. So I think we need to start changing some of our behavior and have the money before we spend it. We want to ask for permission, not ask for forgiveness. So that was just my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Paul Benjamin. I'm the vice chair of this committee. I think this is a very important vote for us. This town needs a reset. If you listen to what's been said here today, we are in the perfect storm of cost increases, just like you found at your house when you went to buy eggs and they went from $2.50 to $12. Everything that the town has paid for has gone up. Our insurance, cost of people, even the equipment that we buy, the cost of building buildings. We're lucky we did our buildings when we did, or we'd be paying $60, $70 million more. We've been very lucky in this town, but one of the ways we've done that is we've also used our savings accounts to balance our annual budget. And we were able to do that because, in fact, they had a lot of money coming in. That's changed. We still have a lot of money coming in, but we don't have as much free cash from new receipts because we've kind of plateaued and our expenses have gone up. So we have overages. Okay. Now, I disagree with one thing you said, which is that they give us the budget book and it's a fait accompli. That budget is not, that's the budget that we have to approve. It's not already spent. Our committee, the select board, look at those numbers and they can change them, eliminate them, modify them, add to them, or subtract to them. It's not a fait accompli. The only thing that we're not involved in directly is salaries in terms of the negotiations with the unions and with the hires that are non-union. Now, to me, I've been listening to people all over town. I've done all of the forums. And what I hear are people who are angry over one thing or another, sometimes 2 things or another, that this town has done, that they just think is totally wrong. A piece of equipment, a building. I've been told we should get rid of our library. I've been told our digging, the new excavator was a big mistake. It shouldn't crash a town's economy because you're pissed off at one thing or another. The people you're aiming at are up here. The people you're actually going to hit are the people who are doing all the work for our town. There are fire departments, some of them are back there, the police officers.
It's your teachers. It's the people who run our parks, our libraries. Those are the people who are going to pay for this vote tonight. Okay? And I know that there's a lot of anger because we're in this position, because nobody wants to pay more taxes. I believe my family, with our property that we've invested and built up in this town, will pay more than most people. I don't want to single you out, but Shardul, I think, is going to pay more than anybody else with all the hotels they own. Okay? But I want you to think very hard of who is going to pay for this. We are going to tighten up budgets we already have, and this money is going to be specifically spent, and there are going to be 3 votes on it. Today, the 29th, and then an actual approval line by line at the next meeting after that. So I'd like you to support the town and vote for this. Thank you.
Peter Matusco, Middle Street. I am one of the 5 that did say no. A few bullet points. Route 9 supports 25 to 30% of our tax levy. That to me does tell us that we don't have an income problem. We do have a true spending problem. And this is to everybody personally here when it comes to your property taxes. My taxes are going to go up from $7,000 to $8,000 instantly. With the compound interest every 5 years, my property taxes are going to be going up another $1,000 every 5 years. That doesn't even account for your assessment values on your houses. The houses in Hadley, they keep on going up. Very little do they go down. They keep on going up, and you keep on looking at your tax bills. So both the commercial and residential taxes will go up, but the commercial businesses will be putting that onto the consumers, not as to us homeowners. In 7 years, 22 full-time employees have been hired. The select board, the department heads, and the HR do not include the finance committee if we can afford these hires, salaries, and benefits. I believe this is a forgiveness tax for the mistakes and spending in the past. The town is still hiring, even though at a certain point if a department has their budget balanced, why are we still hiring if the town as the whole is in debt, still having to pay those salaries and benefits that we can't even pay for? And like Randy wrecked my bullet point, if there's a tax increase, what's going to stop us within the next few years coming back? Well, this shouldn't have come to this point. We should have, at our expense, now having to raise our taxes because the boards have never been talking from all of the departments to not letting us get to this spot where we are now. Just a lack of communication, and that has to stop.
Hi, Andy Kopacki, part of the Finance Committee. I spent a lot of time writing this, but okay, I'll back up a little bit. I spent a lot of time writing this out, but I'm going to have to cut it short here. So, first of all, thanks for seeing all the faces here tonight. It's impressive. I believe that as Finance Committee members, we have an obligation to represent the taxpayer to the town, perhaps even more so than the town to the taxpayer. And it certainly would make the job of everybody up here easier if we went ahead and approved this. I don't agree. We have done all we can do to reduce these burdens for a few reasons. First, accepting this override is affirming all the decisions that have got us to this point in the first place, both good and bad. As said, the override is to supplement the budget and expense slides who have been scrutinized. Thank you again to Linda and Mike and all the department heads for getting those line items as tight as they can. Yet this is an all-in comprehensive $2.25 million override that represents a permanent increase. And we've all seen and endured wave after wave of cost increase as at businesses in the towns, whether it's been healthcare, building repairs, equipment, etc. The original version of this override was split into 3 articles, with the fire department staffing expansion standing on its own. However, in its current form, the majority of the reductions would be facing the fire department. It just doesn't seem right to be passing it all onto them. Separating the fire department out would allow people to support the fire department separately from other reductions, though that proposal was dropped and the budget has been combined. let's see. However, I do not feel, again, it's a multifaceted problem, and I won't cover all the aspects here. However, I don't feel right that it's to ask the property owners in town to bear a permanent 16.7% increase to the taxes in 1 year, while the town has increased staffing over 25% over 6 years since COVID. With staffing increases come employment costs, such as covering sick time, vacation, other paid time off, ever-rising healthcare costs, payroll, and retirement benefits, all for which the town is liable for. Okay, these are all those costs we really need to take into account before we go ahead and hire folks. It's not just their annual salaries. We've got to look at all the ancillary costs that go with it. In closing, a different, albeit responsible override is needed to help replenish the depleted stabilization funds free cash and offset the large health insurance premiums that we are facing. But this current override before you contains more than that. The town should consider some of the responsibility of those increases rather than simply passing them all on to the town's property owners who have little option but to pay. Thank you.
Dan Dudkevitz, 130 Hockenham Road. I've heard a lot of talk about expenses, but not about upcoming revenue. What do you expect to get from a 2.5 override? What are your increases you're going to get from marijuana sales, hotel taxes, and meals tax and all that other revenue? I haven't heard anything. We're going to get more money this year than ever. Is it going to be stable or what? Thank you. Lisa, question?
Lisa, is that something that you would feel comfortable answering? Linda, I'm sorry, Linda. I work with 3 Lisas, I'm sorry. Did you understand the question? Okay.
I just pulled out of the budget book, by the way. When we do the budget, there's a 55-page budget book that is prepared for finance and select board. It's available online. It explains every single budget line by line by line. More information than you'd ever want to know. I mean, we have provided a lot of information for all of those deciding on the budget. As far as revenues, our revenue increase from year to year has been about $850,000. For a few years, it was much higher than that, but we're now settled back down, all leveled off. It doesn't mean it's not bad news. It's just we had 3 really good years in a row as far as increases in revenues. Part of that was because we had to underestimate revenues because they had dropped so much during COVID. It's very hard. Who predicted COVID? How do we predict our way out of it? What happens 3 years after it? We don't have experience in that. Not really. Who does? So right now we're back at a point for a second year in a row. The actual natural increases in our revenues are about $850,000. So that's what we can count on for year to year. But as you see, the increases in our budget, the increases in the healthcare alone ate that up completely. So, then what do we have? So Dan's asking about, do we have different kinds of revenues coming? There's a possibility of, we're very hopeful that our meals and rooms tax, that we will have the option of increasing that percentage. It's something that is before the state. It's not immediately going to be voted on. We don't know what's hanging in there, but we voted on it already in Hadley. Even knowing that it wasn't going to go in effect, we're ready for it. We voted in, I think it was the annual town meeting, we voted in that increase. And if that was to get passed, Hadley would be implementing it immediately, not waiting for the next town meeting. So we are planning ahead, but we are not given a lot of hope for that happening, especially soon. If it did happen, it could bring us an extra $300,000 to $500,000 a year. So we're going to have to wait and see on that one. Do we have other?
Well, I'm good. I'm going to have Jim. You were standing in line. Now, Jim, are you speaking as a member of the planning board or as a citizen?
Citizen.
Go for it.
Jim Maximowski, 1201 I've got 2 questions on the process, not anything else. First one, Is tonight's vote a simple majority or 2/3?
Simple.
Simple majority, it's
Yes.
fine to say.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Next one is, previous speaker said that there was going to be 3 votes. I believe there's only 2, tonight and then a ballot vote. Is that correct?
Then the official appropriation of the funds happens at the October fall meeting.
Okay, that's fine. And if both fail or both pass, that's obvious. But what happens if one or the other passes or fails between tonight and the ballot?
No matter what happens tonight, it does go to the ballot.
And what if it fails tonight and passes at the ballot?
Then we have to turn to the selectmen for allocation. And I have the town council address that one.
Yeah.
If it fails tonight and passes at the ballot, then we have to come back for the appropriation at town meeting. The selectmen can choose to do that as many times as they want until the tax rate is set. They've said they're going to come back in October. So
we still have to vote to approve 2.25 million at a town meeting regardless.
that's correct.
That's what I thought. So I want to make sure everybody understands that.
And even if tonight, let me just clarify, the moderator mentioned this earlier. If tonight passes, it's a general appropriation into a line item to further transfer. So if tonight passes and the ballot passes, you still have to come back in October to do the specific transfers into the specific line items.
Okay. And if tonight fails and the ballot passes, then we come back for fall town meeting and we will basically do the appropriation and this vote again?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody understands that because I was confused.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Finally, my name is Paul McCretsky. I live at 298 River Drive, and I am a 3rd generation McCretsky. My children are a 4th generation. We moved here, my grandfather did, in 1903, and I very much love this town. And I was an employee of the town of Hadley for 12 years. I'm currently, as was brought up earlier, I am the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, and I had a tough time wrestling with this decision as to which way to go. And what really turned me as to which way I was going to vote is a statement was made as to the town of Hadley does not have a spending problem. They have a revenue problem. So I start doing a little bit of digging. And I know, Linda, I love you very much. And we may have a difference of opinion here, but you're looking at $800,000. And I'm coming up with a figure of $1.4 million in extra. And how did I arrive at that? Number one, we're going to get our 2.5% mandated under Prop 2.5. I calculated that out to be about $350,000. In addition to that, there is another what I call forever tax besides this. It's called new growth. Any new buildings, hotels, a new home, whatever, that gets added on top of that 2.5%. So you have an estimate that was given to me of 150,000. So bring out your calculators or start adding this up. And you're getting up to $500,000 now. So then I looked at another non-tax source of revenue that the town receives from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that's our cherry sheet. And the FY26 cherry sheets are showing an additional $500,000 more than we're getting in FY25. Keep adding this up. We're up to $1 million now. And then there's the 4th category, which is the local estimated receipts, as Mr. Dudkevitz brought up, or excuse me, a previous speaker. And that consists of all these, that's a catch-all for all the hotel, motel tax, the meals tax. And as we all know, any of us who go out to eat, our prices are going up quite rapidly, and therefore the town is a beneficiary, because if the price of a meal goes up, they collect a higher tax, and the same with hotel rates. And we've seen a lot of hotels going up in the last several years in Hadley. And there's also the the cannabis revenue that comes in. So all this adds up to about another, in my estimation, $400,000. So you got $1.4 million, which is about 6%, which when I researched the past 3 years prior, that's exactly what our increase was. And so if you vote no, which I'm hoping that you folks will consider it, you're not cutting taxes 1 penny. If you vote no, you're not even level funding a budget. But if you vote no, you're still allowing the town to take in another 1.4 million or 6%. And so I started looking, I said, well, how about our neighbors? Our neighbor to the west, our neighbor to the east, Amherst. What was their 3-year average? 4%. What is the 3-year average in Northampton? 5%. So we have a much more robust outside revenue source that brings in these funds each year, and it's growing. There's a lot of potential, and I think somebody already brought up, and I'm going to get cut short here, but I did want to talk about our tax rate, and I will discuss that later, but thank you very much, and I hope that you'll join me in voting no.
I want to make, there we go. I want to make an announcement just as a reminder. When you go to vote in the boxes that are up here, one ballot. You're not allowed to have more than one ballot when you vote. So if someone says, hey, I got to take the kid back home or whatever it may be, here, vote for me, not going to happen. If you leave town meeting and you're planning on coming back, please see the registrars up front. They will facilitate what you need to do. But again, when you go to vote, it's one ballot. You cannot, vote for someone who came and then left. So please keep that in mind.
Just a quick
Quick retort. Yeah.
Quick answer. The previous speaker mentioned that the revenues were actually higher each year. That's not all available to us when we're trying to reduce our free cash. When you use free cash one year and the next year we say, okay, we're going to use 300,000 less, which is exactly what we did. That's the $300,000 difference. That means we have to cut the budget. We have, of the 1.1 million, or if there's 1.1 million in increases in revenues, and we're going to reduce free cash that we use, we only have 800,000 available. That's the hole that's that repeating hole that we're trying to get out of each year. Every time we go to reduce the free cash, we're not getting the full value of the revenue increases as they happen each year.
Pam Hay, 261 River Drive. When we talked at the forum, we were told that if this does not go through, that there are going to be layoffs. I've heard through those social media forums in the last couple of weeks that 2/3 of that is probably going to be from the school system. We're school choice. We get paid for every extra student that comes into this town every year. If you go to the school committee's budget the meeting they just had on 7/31, they have $2 million sitting in school choice. Why are we not using that money to fund the teachers' salaries and the teachers' increased insurances? Because those teachers are only here because we have school choice. We have 100+ students that are in school choice, and we're not using the funds to appropriate to the resources that are used for those kids to be here.
Question.
So the previous speaker mentioned the school layoffs. We have had zero discussions about school layoffs or any specific layoffs at this point, other than what Linda mentioned about certain departments running out of funds as of October 1st based on our current budget. So any of those rumors are completely untrue.
Brian West, 203 Bay Road. Mr. Moderator, it's been great having the questions and all the talking points, but from my experience on the select board, which was, I believe, 12 years, if people remember correctly, I sat through budget meetings, and sometimes I said yes, sometimes I said no, and sometimes I said no chance. So how do we as a town go through a pandemic where we know our revenues are going to drop, Yet we continue to add FTEs. Everything in the world today is FTEs.
Explain.
A full-time equivalent, hiring people. So obviously, we've added a lot of staff in the last 7 years through a pandemic where we knew our revenue was going to drop because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and it's going to take you 5 to 10 years to come back from that. Yet we kept hiring. At some point, somebody who is elected in this town has to say, before we hire somebody, how are we going to pay for it? And if that question was asked over the last 5 years, we wouldn't be sitting here. And so I just want to take it to heart that when I sat on the select board, I had department heads come in and say, I need to hire 2 new people. And I said, no, it's not going to happen. It wouldn't even make it to town meeting floor because there's no way to pay for it. You can't hire people until you can pay for them.
And 26 Waterloo Drive didn't answer my question. There's $2 million sitting in school choice. It's not being used to pay for the teachers or pay for anything else or help balance this budget. Why is that money not being utilized?
Superintendent in the back of the room, I'm told.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. As a matter of fact, you can see in the school department budget that we're using $1.6 million of school choice funding to balance the school department budget this year. The original request of the school department to the town was roughly 2.98% increase. Due to the fiscal hardship that the town was facing, that was reduced to a 1.3% increase when we increased the amount of money from school choice. The 2 million balance that you see, 1.6 million of that is committed to the operating budget currently. It'll be applied to the operating budget. We'll withdraw it from the town side and apply it to the school operating budget during the course of the year. And in FY20, we used about $675,000 of school choice money to balance the budget. Again, in FY25, that's increased to 1.6 million. So in fact, we are using it. And that's why that money is not available. Also, by law, the school committee votes and appropriates it. We have, in years, given money back to the town, which is why over the last about 5 fiscal years, increases to the school department budget have averaged 1.6% each year. I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melinda Nielsen at 20 Middle Street. I hope that it has sunk into everybody's mind, something that I didn't realize until we came here tonight, what Mr. Kopacki mentioned, that this is going to be a 16% increase, not just 2.5%, 16%. And I didn't grasp until tonight that it's going to remain at that level. That's not just this year, it's going to remain at that level, and the 2.5% is going to be accumulating on top of that. So my question is, what is the median cost for the homeowner in Hadley of this increase?
So this slide is directly from the public meetings, the public hearings that we did. The median income of Hadley resident, the average is that middle bracket there. It's 459,000 or so. Median assessed value. So we picked those 3, putting the average in the middle, and 350 below it, 550 above it. So if you look across, this is if the entire override is passed, and that means Article 1 and Article 2, which we haven't even gotten to yet. This is basically the worst case scenario for your taxes, and this is what the numbers look like if you were to pass the entire thing. If you go on, I know nobody wants to bring it up right now, nobody has laptops, but if you go on mass.gov, there's actually a calculator that will go from assessed value from 250,000 all the way up to over $1 million, and you can get your assessed what the tax increase will be for you.
Yes.
My name is.
You got to bend down. It's tough being tall.
Okay, sorry. So my name is Robert Griffin. I live at 121 West Street. And it's just a simple question. I'm uncomfortable with this being a permanent situation. If this fails, would the people of the government of Hadley consider, like we all make mistakes sometimes, we need a little help, get that help once, but not make it a permanent situation?
Is that possible? Okay. You know, someone with legalese answer that one.
Once it's set until it were to be returned for a vote to end it.
Right. If it didn't pass, would you consider coming back with another request to the town to do a one-time adjustment?
So the one-time adjustments are called debt exclusions, and they can only be used for certain things, as opposed to a general override, which is what this is, and that would be up to the select board.
It's possible then. Okay. I think somebody just said
The debt exclusion is limited to things that are capital items or things that you borrow for. Overrides are related to general expenditures. So for the things that are included in this, generally, a debt exclusion could not be used.
So you're saying it's not possible for the town, if this fails, to say to the town of Hadley people, look, we need $2 million. We want to, increase your taxes for 1 year, get that money, fix our problem, and then put your taxes back to where they were.
So I correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I've heard tonight, and I've read. So this is an operating budget issue. It's not a one-time expenditure issue. It's a general operations issue.
I understand that, but is it possible, if this gets rejected, to ask for a one-time bit of help? Is that possible?
No.
That's too bad.
Braden Kudrick, 21 Tremere Road. I call the vote.
Point of order. Is the secret ballot a given, or do we need to make a motion for it?
The secret ballot is a given. As a moderator, I called that before the meeting even started. Conversations. Hello. Yep. Oh, there we go. Okay. The motion has been made correctly to call the question. So all conversation stops at this point. All in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. The question's called. I think that was, let's call that unanimous, Jess. All right, voting time, folks. What we are going to do is we're going to vote in sections to avoid mad rushes. Bleacher crowd, you're first to go. You vote there. Bleacher crowd, you're first to go. You vote there. One ballot. You use your pink ballot. If you put the wrong one in, tough cookies. Make sure ballots. At this time, if you have a number on your card of 501 or higher, there are over 100 of you, please go back, see the registrars, check in again, and you'll get a new set of ballots. And some of the frustration has been misdirected also. I'm the moderator. I control this meeting. Everything that happens at this meeting has to have my approval. I thought that we would not get 500 people here, but I wanted to be careful. I was having nightmares of having more people than ballots. So I called up Jess, the town clerk, and I said, Jess, do 500. She said, you're nuts. I said, I know, but do 500. So the fact that we have 120 people more, we have 620 people here, and not enough ballots to be handed out when you all checked in is my fault. So I apologize to everybody that has to go through that registration process again. Again, we topped out at a little over 400 for the Lowe's votes. My God, I never thought we'd see 600 people at town meeting. Please come back in October.
I know.
Really?
Drink some water.
If you're concerned about how your tax money is spent, damn it, come to town meeting and vote. If you don't vote at town meeting how your money is spent, you haven't got much of a leg to stand on to complain. So please come out to the town meetings. I can't hear you. Yeah, he's good. We're going to give people with the higher ballot numbers just a few minutes to kind of work their way through the line. I want everybody to understand what we're voting on. I want to say thank you to everybody for your patience. We tried to get things to move as quickly as possible, but keep you all informed at the same time. And your patience is sincerely, sincerely appreciated with all of this. Thank you. And thank you all for coming out. Yeah. 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 Sniffing glue. So for me, it was sniffing glue. Oh yeah. Right. I told him where there's most of all models that have the hours. Fumes were really because we used the liquid kind. I had friends. We had the liquid you brush it on. Oh yeah. And I model I would do. That's why I picked that airplanes. And me, but I had a friend. I was like, I'm doing this. That we could have, like we did for I think the Lowe's that we did that. And actually, this was like cluster. Yeah. And it's get an airbrush, you know, like everybody I know who are like candy trying to get the lines all right. Right. What cameras? He's got an airbrush, everything else. Yeah, he's keeps on. With superior German, I go with so superior. Father worked for the city of Philly under the pension. So, well, they ran out of people and resources. Yeah. They said I was just watching something. I was exercising, so sometimes things pop up in my feet. So one of the things that in Germany is more true. Only 20% of Germany have electricity. Yeah. When they couldn't believe the POWs couldn't believe how when they were in the U.S. how much we need. And it was very much countries also need. Well, they said they were treated better here than they were. But I guess the camps here were pretty good, but I guess the camps in Europe were not bad. POW, yeah, especially in buses. You're done. You're done. They'll never see you again. It's one.
Yeah, I would say that. So, you know, the chemotherapy came out of muscle meat. Majority. And I'd heard about this before, reading the book.
While the registrars are counting, I just want to remind everybody that this is a simple majority vote, either way. It appears as though the line in back is cut down. Thank you, registrars. Article 2, motion. Move the town vote to raise and appropriate $300,000 for the purpose of funding the capital stabilization account for the capital expenditures of town assets, equipment, maintenance, and infrastructure, subject to the approval of the Proposition 2.5 override, or to take any other action relative thereto. Is there a second? All right. Nobody up here has comments, and anybody here want to make a comment? Select board does not. Paul, you want to address it? Keep it short. Wait. No.
Hey.
All right, hang on. Hang on. I want to go with the crowd.
Is that my wife? Yeah.
If you would like to move to a straight vote, please raise your card. So we're going to a straight vote. Okay, registrars, can we get the boxes back up here, please? There's one. There's two. Jess and Mike to the rescue.
Well, if they're gonna drop so.
We're going to use the same voting procedure. Sorry, center section. All right, bleachers, go vote. You hear this? All right. So the results of Article 1 voting. The yeses are 250. The noes are 344. Article 1 does not pass. Keep in mind, folks, just because Article 1 did not pass does not mean this is over. We still have Article 2 results, and we have to vote on the 29th at the Senior Center. So please turn out to vote on the 29th at the Senior Center.
Treasurer's not either. Sorry. So.